What's up? What's up? Welcome to another market recap. Today is May 6th, 2025. So I had one trade today. I took an MBO and it played out for a slight loss, like negative 0.29. The trade ultimately, like the bias played out, but my timing was a little bit off. So let's get into it. I guess to fast forward, because I have to delete some of this stuff, but markets are going crazy right now too, right? Like right here. I don't know about y'all, but I'm particularly kind of like tired of all this tariff stuff at this point. It would be nice if things would kind of just chill out and go back to normal and have a little bit more predictable price action. I'm not really a news trader, so I just like made a whole daily watch list over here, and most of it now has kind of just been invalidated almost by all this news coming in. So still watching some of this stuff tonight for some like 1 hour kind of plays, but I literally just built this list and then more tariff China talk come out and then it just destroys everything. Anyway, back to this MBO. It was on Aussie Yen. And at the same time I was looking at this MBO, there was also an MBO on Pound Aussie and Pound Kiwi. So your pound pairs and then your Aussie pairs essentially both kind of had MBOs. And I think the best MBO, honestly, was this Pound Kiwi right here. All right, I was watching this. I really liked the level it was coming up to, like a nice kind of like previous low right here, tested right there, tested kind of in this general area, tested right here. So a nice kind of horizontal resistance we have. And then the 200 EMA on the 1 hour is sitting right there. So the 4 hour 50. And price has, just been steadily trucking its way up there, following a pretty nice clean trend. And then it hits that area and then kind of consolidates. And like we were talking about yesterday of like price squeezing within the point of this kind of pattern and then breaking down, like that's the preferable kind of what I'm looking for. And I got it on this pair. The issue was the spread on this for me was 4.5 pips. And my position size is like 20 pips or so. I mean, I had this originally positioned about there at the start of the hour. I would have waited for a break. Probably would have been something like this, though, a little bit tighter, about 20 pips or so. So I really didn't love the spread on this pair. Like trying to trade something with 4.5 pips is kind of just a real pain. So I started looking at these other options, and I had Pound Aussie. The spread on this is a heck of a lot more manageable for me. Right now, it's kind of crazy, but there's news and the market's kind of just rolled over. But normally, the spread on this pair for me is 1 pip or so. So it was hitting similar to Pound Kiwi, a nice kind of horizontal level that's been previously respected numerous times. But my only thing I didn't like is that it's not quite retested the 200 EMA yet on this 1 hour time frame. I really kind of wanted that 200 EMA to be in a line with this level that, get a nice kind of rejection of all of it and whatnot. So that's what led me to Aussie Yen, right? Like if I go and look at Aussie Yen on this 1 hour time frame, I had a similar kind of thing to Pound Aussie and Pound Kiwi. I have a horizontal, support level in this case, but it's, nice, been respected in the past, over here, right? So a pretty decent level. And then as well as my 200 EMA lines up with it, right? So I have more than just a level. I also have an EMA to kind of like help out. And, so I took it, and of the three, this one kind of whipsawed right as, New York kind of like stock market stuff opened around 8:30. From 8:30 to 9, it kind of like went up and then crashed back down and crashed back up. So kind of just like whipsawed a little bit. But that whipsaw took me out of the trade. If I would have taken pound Aussie or pound Kiwi, that didn't really occur on either one of these pairs, and these would have been profitable trades. So, and then I looked later on in the day around the 10 o'clock hour. When we get into that, I'm going to go through and just delete this here in a second to make this a little more clear. But I looked for a kind of CBO style entry, but it never really pulled back to give me an entry a couple hours later. So, but we have Kiwi again. We can talk to you a little bit about that. If we go back in time here, what was this, 8 o'clock hour? Yeah. So this is primarily what this trade looked like as I was looking at it, right? I had this trend line drawn in here. Price had kind of decelerated. I have this double bottom. I have MACD, and I entered on a break of the trend line. Granted, it's not like a really strong break of the trend line, nor is this like a super strong trend line. The trend line over on pound Aussie or pound Kiwi is a heck of a lot better, right? Like this kind of multi-touch long-term trend line. I just really wish the EMA was more lined up on pound Aussie right here. But in hindsight, this was the better pair to take just due to the fact of like price really respected this trend for a long time and then broke it. So I had deceleration here, right? And I still have a downward trend and it's still giving a break, but it's not like a strong break. If we go again back to pound Aussie and I move this out of the way, like there's a like strong break like right here. Technically you can almost enter here, but really like a good kind of like strong break is what I'm looking for in this kind of area. So, but a break is a break. It was a trade. It gave me everything I've been really kind of classifying these MBOs and looking for. So it's a valid trade. I took it, and then I'm still currently, my intent to manage these is using my normal kind of micro time frame management, because these plays, like, they push further than just a normal 2-minute IBO or CBO usually, but at least to the point of getting risk off of the table. I'm probably still going to, for the meantime, for this month, use the 30-second time frame to manage them. I mean, that's my intent going into the month. So we'll see how it plays out. It might be something I need to kind of check and adjust as time goes on. So I can't execute P1 ever on an MBO because essentially I'm entering at P1 on most of these trades. So a kind of a break of like a 30-second trend, right? And that's what this entry is right here. Normally for me, that on the break of that, I would go to and clip the low. So that would be P1. So I guess actually I need to change the name of this. So I said it was P1, but realistically this would be more of a P2 play. So but what I can do is P2. So when price pushes, goes for a retest of the 30-second EMA, and then gives me a follow through. So like a kind of confirmation of a trend, like this is a CBO on the 30-second time frame. I can now clip that low as we're trending on this 30-second, right? So that's what I did. But when price kind of like started to push a decent amount here, you know, kind of a clear trend on the 30-second at that point, I went ahead and I clipped this low. On Aussie yen still has a little bit of a spread for me. It's like a pip and a half or so. So I didn't quite just clip it because I didn't want price to come and retest a little bit and trigger me out due to a spread. So I clipped it about here to account for the spread. And price, pushed and went to about a half, 0.5 or so R, and then just kind of reversed and then took me out of the trade. And my stop loss for the negative 2.9, and then just kept rolling. So if I would have done no management at all in this trade, it would have been a full loss for 1R. And then after that, the trade reversed and really played out. So, I mean, there's a potential to say, like, if I would have had a little wider of a stop here, it would have been fine. But my intent to take these MBOs is really just a stop clip. So with that kind of intent, this trade would always kind of be a loss, kind of the risk of the stop clip method. You get an easier kind of target, but if price does some stuff like this, then it takes you out of the trade. So, and re-entries for me really aren't a thing right now. I don't like kind of chasing a trade. I did entertain a re-entry, but it was basically based off of an entire different strategy, right? It's no longer an MBO at this point. When I was looking to re-enter, it's become a CBO. At that point, it's become a pretty nice, clean wave 3 CBO, like wave 1 breakout, wave 2 pullback, wave 3 CBO. But this wave 2 pullback just didn't pull back enough to allow me to get into the trade. So yeah, that was my one trade for the day. Was this Aussie yen MBO. At 9 o'clock, I had Euro Pound on watch, and it decided to pull back close to the point of entry. And I even kind of was sitting here and I was watching this, and I increased my entry by like a pip or two, right? It's no longer at 0.382. It's a little bit higher. It's basically at the first line of support, which would be the pivot in this case, is where my entry was, but price didn't quite pull back enough before it kind of ran to my target. And then price did retrace and ultimately ran to it again, but at that point, it's not really my strategy. Like I'm looking for just on an IBO, I'm looking for a wave 1 break, a wave 2 pullback to my entry point, and then playing the wave 3 to the 10-minute 50, essentially. But that all already occurred. So at this point, this trade for me is kind of invalidated. Even though it did play out, it's like a crapshoot from my experience at this point. Like it can either play out again or it can not. This trade ultimately ended up just kind of running from there. So, I mean, it ran with most of the pound pairs. I mean, these two kind of pounds and Euro Pound, they all just kind of had some pretty nice movements throughout the day, throughout the entirety of kind of the New York session. So that was 9 o'clock. So the trade didn't pull back to allow me to enter. At 10 a.m., I had pound dollar and Kiwi yen, and I also had Aussie yen at this point. All right. So I was looking for a pound dollar play when it came to this pair. So an IBO, like a nice, just kind of little break of a trend at some kind of decent support. I mean, resistance here, right? It's been used in the past. So enough. I'm only, 1, 2 kind of candles in at this point. So there's plenty of room to move from the level we're at to my target. So pretty kind of just simple, clean trade. It just didn't pull back to allow me to enter. And then same thing with Kiwi yen here. That pound dollar was an IBO, but this would be a CBO. It was a CBO on the 2-minute. It was an IBO on the 10-minute. And then it would have been an ACB on the 30-second if it would have pulled back to value. So really kind of like all 3 timeframes lined up. The only thing I didn't like too much about Kiwi yen was its 1 hour time frame. At the same time, like Aussie yen has a much better 1 hour, right? Like you don't have S1 in the way. You had still room to move to like S1 in the 1 hour 50, but on Kiwi yen, price had pretty much already hit S1. It's hitting these previous lows over here. So it's still manageable. You still have a nice kind of bullish engulfing candle. And you still have really nice price action on the 2 minute time frame. I just would have preferred Aussie yen over this Kiwi yen. But they both were on watch to see if one of them would pull back enough to enter the trade. And I even had my entry on this one, like roughly 2 pips or so higher than 0.382, and price didn't pull back to allow me to enter. Nothing for the 11 o'clock hour. And then the 12 o'clock hour, I had Euro Aussie on watch. And if I remember correctly, this did not pull back fully either. So this was another kind of just IBO play. I had some decent kind of support here where previously, basically forming double bottoms here on the 1 hour. Nice kind of break a trend, looking for just a retrace. But the only kind of issue is that the 50 EMA is sitting higher than 0.382, and it's sitting like a good bit higher. So I could have changed the position size some here, but even still, it was a tight position size at 9 pips. And then to enter this trade, I would have had to like have a limit essentially 3 pips higher than 0.382, which really isn't a part of my plan. Like I'm okay taking a little bit higher, but it's roughly only a pip or 2 is what I'm experimenting with this month. So this trade didn't really pull back to value, I would say either. Played out, just didn't allow me to get into the trade. So really the 3 main trades, it took the one that was available that presented an entry. Didn't really play out, but pound Aussie, pound Kiwi, these MBOs played out really nicely, honestly. And it makes me wonder if even a 2-to-1 target like this is necessarily the right move on an MBO, or if it would kind of make more sense to just follow a 30-second kind of trend here. So I was watching this throughout most of the day, right? And I was thinking you can kind of just start to follow the trend here. Let me move this on this 30-second. I might entertain kind of switching management to this later on, but you can, like these really trendy, nice movements, like I could just start clipping highs on the way down, right? And price kind of like is what it is at that point. Like you kind of just capture as much as you can. As price like starts to break, you clip another high. And more than likely, you clip this high right here as price starts to break down right there, and then you'd probably be out someplace over here. And in an example like that, like this trade would have netted roughly, 5R instead of the 2R. So just interesting, something to think about. I don't anticipate all these kind of MBO style plays to really play out for this much. Like this is a rather kind of large movement, especially if you think about in the day, like price ran up and then immediately just kind of retraced the entire movement of the previous kind of London session, London and Asia. So realistically, I'd kind of anticipate this more to come back and kind of stop around the 1 hour 50, which is why my target on it typically is just right before that 1 hour 50 or at the 1 hour 50, right? For a 2-to-1, 3-to-1, at a minimum of 2-to-1. And then if I can get more, I'll take more. So, but yeah, that was my day. And that's really all I got. So I'll catch you guys tomorrow. See you.